In the dim, waning light of a dreary afternoon, a weary widow with 2 young children stumbled upon an unexpected treasure amidst the mountains of discarded refuse. Olivia Martin, her face etched with the lines of countless hardships, had been desperately scavenging through a desolate dump, hoping to find scraps of food to feed her hungry children, Scarlett and Jackson. The innocence of their play nearby was a poignant contrast to their mother's silent agony, her heart breaking with each failure to provide a simple meal for them. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. At 38, Olivia's life had become an unending series of trials and tribulations since the tragic death of her beloved husband. Each day felt like a relentless battle against the crushing weight of poverty and loss. As Scarlett, her youngest, tugged on her worn skirt with a soft, plaintive "Mama, I'm hungry," Olivia forced a smile, though her heart ached deeply. "We'll find something soon, sweetheart," she whispered, though doubt gnawed at her insides like a persistent hunger. Her hands, chapped and bruised from endless rummaging, sifted through the garbage until they brushed against something soft and entirely unexpected. Pulling it out, Olivia gasped in astonishment as she revealed a luxurious carpet, an opulent artifact absurdly out of place in such a miserable setting. Her pulse quickened, not just at the thought of its possible value, but at the immediate shock of its presence in this desolate place. As she carefully unfurled the carpet, her breath caught in her throat. Nestled within its rich folds was a thick envelope brimming with cash. "Oh my God," she murmured, her eyes wide with a mix of astonishment, disbelief, and mounting fear. She instinctively looked around, her senses heightened by the adrenaline surging through her veins. Jackson, sensing something unusual, approached with innocent curiosity. "What is it, Mama?" he asked, his eyes searching her face for answers. Olivia quickly concealed the envelope. "It's just an old carpet, love," she replied, her voice trembling despite her efforts to stay calm. "Let's take it home. It might be useful." As they prepared to leave the dump, Olivia's sharp eyes caught sight of a shadowy figure in the distance, watching them intently. The encroaching twilight made it difficult to discern any details, but the eerie presence sent a chill down her spine. "Who's that?" Mama Scarlett whispered, her voice tinged with fear. Olivia squeezed her daughter's hand, her own heart pounding with a mix of dread and urgency. "I don't know, but we need to leave," now she urged, quickening their pace. Jackson, unable to contain his curiosity, asked about the carpet as they hurried away. "Should we tell someone about this?" he inquired, his young mind grappling with the enormity of their find. Olivia's mind raced with conflicting thoughts. "We'll figure it out at home," she said, trying to sound reassuring and confident. "For now, this stays between us." Their hurried steps echoed in the quiet night, blending with the murmurs of the encroaching darkness. Olivia cast a final, wary glance back, but the mysterious figure had vanished, leaving her with a sense of unease that she couldn't shake off. The pressing need to protect her children and the potential solution to their financial woes propelled her forward. Back at their humble shack, Olivia locked the fragile door, the night's discovery weighing heavily on her mind. The rickety walls and leaky roof seemed to close in on her, amplifying her anxiety. Scarlett and Jackson watched their mother with wide, hopeful eyes, still feeling the pangs of hunger gnawing at their bellies. Olivia quickly prepared a meager meal from some vegetables she had managed to salvage earlier, trying to soothe their empty stomachs. As they ate, the enormity of her discovery gnawed at her incessantly. She knew she needed help but had no way to contact anyone without a phone. "Mama, are we going to be okay?" Scarlett asked, her voice small and tinged with worry. Olivia forced another smile, masking her deep-seated fear and uncertainty. "We will, my love. We just need to be careful," she assured her daughter, though her heart was heavy with doubt. Determined, Olivia wrapped the envelope in an old cloth and assured her children she would be back soon. She made her way through the dimly lit, labyrinthine streets to the local police station, seeking the help of someone she could trust. There, she found Officer Ethan Johnson, a familiar and kind figure in their community, patrolling near the station as usual. "Ethan, I need your help," Olivia said, approaching him with the concealed envelope clutched tightly in her hands. "I found this today, and I'm terrified it could cause trouble." Ethan's expression grew serious as he took in her words. "Let's go inside and talk," he said, guiding her to a private room where she could recount her discovery in detail. Inside the dimly lit station, Olivia unfolded her tale, her voice a mix of fear and hope. Ethan listened intently, his brow furrowing with concern as he examined the envelope of cash. "This is quite a find," he said thoughtfully, "but we need to be very careful about what we do next." Olivia nodded, the weight of her situation pressing heavily on her shoulders. "I just want to keep my children safe," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I don't know who might be watching us or what this money could mean for us." Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll figure this out, Olivia. You're not alone in this. We'll make sure you and your children are safe." With renewed resolve, Olivia left the station, the envelope still safely hidden. She knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but with the support of trusted allies like Ethan, she felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in a long while. As she walked back through the darkened streets, her thoughts swirled with the possibilities and dangers that lay ahead, but she held her head high, determined to face whatever came her way for the sake of her children. "You did well to bring this here, Olivia. This seems to be too large an amount not to be involved in something illegal. I will record this, and we will investigate where it came from, according to the serial numbers on the bills," explained Ethan, already starting to fill out a report. Leaving the money in Ethan's care, Olivia felt a momentary relief. He promised to keep everything confidential until more information was discovered. When she arrived at the entrance of her house, Olivia's heart was pounding, still unsure if she had made the right choice. As she walked through her simple porch, a piece of paper caught her attention. A small envelope with a note was on the worn table. Olivia picked it up and read the handwritten message, "Stay out of this." Forget the money, her blood ran cold. She looked around but saw no one. Clutching the note in her hand, Olivia closed the door of the house, now aware that the situation was more dangerous than she had imagined. The first thing she did was hug her children, promising herself that she would do whatever it took to protect them, even if it meant facing unknown threats. In the following days, the tension around Olivia increased. While the routine of the shack remained unchanged externally, internally, everything seemed different. She kept a constant watch, feeling eyes in every shadow. The neighbors, once friendly, now cast curious glances and whispered among themselves when she passed, increasing Olivia's sense of isolation. She knew there must be some rumor about what had happened. Probably, someone must have seen her go to the police. "Mama, why are people acting strange?" Jackson asked one morning as he watched through the kitchen window. Olivia, who was preparing a modest breakfast with the money she had made from selling some things she found in the trash, thought deeply before answering her son. "Sometimes people get nervous or scared when they don't understand something, dear. They don't know what happened, but they know something happened." Scarlett, hearing the conversation, looked at her mother with her big, worried eyes. "Do they think we did something bad?" "No, my dear. We didn't do anything wrong," Olivia assured, fixing Scarlett's hair while trying to disguise her own anxiety. As the day went on, the feeling of being watched did not diminish. Olivia noticed a black car she did not recognize driving slowly down the dirt road where she lived. The first time it passed, she thought it was a coincidence. The second time, her heart began to beat faster. When the car passed a third time, briefly stopping in front of her shack before moving on, fear took hold of her. That night, while her children slept, Olivia sat at the kitchen table, her hands trembling with nervousness. She tried to calm her nerves, but the silence of the house seemed a stark contrast to the whirlwind of thoughts in her mind. It was almost midnight when the sound of an engine breaking the night silence made her get up abruptly. Peeking through the tattered curtain, she saw the same black car parked across the street. A hooded figure got out and began walking toward her house. Olivia quickly retreated, her heart pounding erratically. "This can't be a coincidence," she murmured to herself, feeling a mixture of fear and anger. She ran to her children's room, gently waking them. "We need to go to the back of the house," she whispered, guiding them to a hidden place in the house where she kept some tools and old boxes. "Mama, what's happening?" Jackson asked, his voice trembling in the dark. "Stay quiet," Olivia instructed, her voice firm though her heart was in turmoil. The minutes dragged on like hours as they waited in the dark. Olivia listened to every sound outside, imagining whether the figure would decide to enter. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the sound of the engine was heard again, and the car left. Olivia let out a sigh of relief, but knew that the night had been more of a warning than an end to their problems. "Let's go back to bed, okay," she said, trying to return some normalcy to her children's night. As she led the children back to bed, Olivia knew things were far from okay. The visit that night was a clear reminder that danger was still very close, perhaps more than ever. The next morning, after the nighttime incident, Olivia had barely slept. As soon as the sun began to light the dusty horizon, she was already up, making coffee in the kitchen, her mind still clouded by fear and uncertainty. Scarlett and Jackson woke up to the smell of coffee and joined her, feeling the tension that still hung in the air. "Mama, are you okay?" Jackson asked, noticing the deep circles under Olivia's eyes. She forced a smile as she served the coffee. "Yes, my love, just a little tired," she lied, trying to protect the children from her own worries. The day before, she had managed to sell many things, so they had a peaceful breakfast. Olivia's dream was to get a good job so her children could eat with dignity, but few wanted to hire a simple woman like her, especially when she didn't have money to buy decent clothes for interviews. She made do with the little she had. After breakfast, there was a knock on the door. Olivia felt her heart leap. Cautiously, she approached and opened the door. There stood Ethan, the police officer, with a grave expression. "Olivia, we need to talk," he said, entering. "There have been developments regarding the money you found." She led him to the small kitchen table, and Ethan looked at her seriously before continuing. "We discovered that the money is directly linked to a large financial fraud network. More concerning, we discovered how they knew you found the money." Olivia swallowed hard, feeling a knot form in her throat. "How do they know?" she asked, fearing the answer. "A man was watching the dump while you found the carpet. A distant camera caught him leaving the carpet and shortly after you finding the object. However, we couldn't identify him in the recording, so we traced the origin of the money and concluded that the person behind it all is Alexander Lopez. A name you might recognize. He is very influential and dangerous." Olivia's mind was spinning. Alexander Lopez was known in the city, a businessman with a reputation both as a philanthropist and as someone not to be crossed. Some said he was involved with the mafia. Olivia had seen the man in the neighborhood before, accompanied by some dangerous men. Olivia, Ethan continued, "This means you're in serious danger. Lopez will stop at nothing to recover what he considers his. We need to find a way to protect you and your children." The gravity of the situation sank in, and Olivia's fear was palpable. "What can we do?" she asked, her voice trembling. "We can arrange for you to stay in a safe house until we can deal with Lopez and his men," Ethan suggested. "It's not ideal, but it's the best way to ensure your safety right now." Olivia nodded, realizing she had little choice. "I just want my children to be safe," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan stood up, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll make sure of that. Olivia, pack what you need, and I'll arrange for your transport to the safe house." As Ethan left, Olivia's mind raced with the implications of this turn of events. She gathered her children and quickly packed their belongings, explaining to them that they would be going on a little trip for their safety. Scarlett and Jackson, sensing the urgency in their mother's tone, did not ask many questions, but their eyes were filled with worry. A few hours later, a discreet car arrived to take them to the safe house. As they drove away from their home, Olivia couldn't help but look back at the life they were leaving behind, at least for now. She knew their journey was far from over, but she was determined to protect her children, no matter the cost. "What does he want from me?" Olivia asked, her voice trembling slightly. "He wants to ensure you don't cooperate with the police. He has a lot to lose if this investigation continues," explained Ethan, looking her directly in the eyes. As soon as Ethan left, a noise outside caught Olivia's attention. She peeked through the window and saw a car parking. It wasn't the black car from before, but a more expensive and imposing car. Out came Alexander Lopez himself, accompanied by two large men who seemed to be there to ensure the mobster's safety. This time, Olivia had no way to ignore it. There was no time to flee, so she opened the door, trembling with fear. "Olivia, dear, I am Alexander Lopez. I believe you have heard my name. In this town, we are all concerned about you," Alexander began, his voice as smooth as honey. "We heard about your find and were very impressed with your honesty," he said ironically. It was clear from his tone that he detested Olivia for turning the money over to the police, as it would lead them to him. Despite the fear she felt, Olivia knew she couldn't show anything that could be used against her. "What do you want with me, Alexander?" she asked, her voice shaking but determined to hold her ground. Alexander maintained his focus on Olivia. "I just want to ensure there are no misunderstandings. It would be a shame if your cooperation with the police harmed the community. We both know that sometimes it's better to let things be, don't we, and pretend we didn't find anything." His gaze was a clear warning, and Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. He was here not just to intimidate her, but to do so publicly, showing he didn't fear the consequences of his actions. Even though Olivia had reported him to the police, he came to her house. By now, all the neighbors must have seen Alexander's car at her door. It was a reminder that he didn't fear those who reported him or the police. "I'll think about what you said," Olivia managed to say, her voice firmer than she felt. Alexander smiled again, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Great, that's all I ask," he turned, signaling for his bodyguards to follow as he returned to his car. After the man left, Olivia felt the storm was far from over. "I'll solve this," she said, but the words felt more like a question than a statement. As she closed the door, she knew the challenge she faced now was greater than she could have ever imagined. In the days following Alexander Lopez's visit, Olivia felt as if she were living under a magnifying glass. The neighbors' stares became heavier, whispers more frequent, and the atmosphere around her house more oppressive. Olivia did her best to maintain a normal routine for Scarlett and Jackson, but the constant fear of retaliation consumed her thoughts every moment. "Mama, people are acting strange again," Jackson commented as they returned from a quick trip to the local market. Olivia held his hand tightly, squeezing it slightly. "We will be fine. We just need to be strong," she replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. One day, after arriving home, Olivia noticed something strange on the front door. A message was scribbled in red ink, the letters carelessly formed. "Stop talking or pay the price." Olivia's heart raced. She looked around, searching for someone who might have been the author of the message, but the streets were eerily quiet. They wanted her to drop the report, probably claiming that she was mistaken and that the money was hers. "Mama, what does this mean?" Scarlett asked, her voice trembling with fear. Olivia quickly guided her inside, locking the door behind her. "Nothing, dear. It's just someone trying to scare us," she said, trying to appear calm, but her heart was pounding like a drum in her chest. She moved away from the door and went to the public phone near her house and dialed Ethan's number with trembling hands, hoping he would answer quickly. "Ethan, it's Olivia. Someone wrote a threat on my door. I'm really scared now, she confessed, her voice almost a whisper. I'm on my way, Ethan responded without hesitation. Don't leave the house and keep the doors and windows locked. While waiting for Ethan, Olivia gathered the children in the living room, trying to distract them with games, but her mind was elsewhere. She jumped at every noise, every shadow passing by the window, her fear growing with each passing minute. Ethan arrived within minutes, knocking urgently on the door. Olivia ran to open it, relieved to see his face. Let me see the message, said Ethan, passing by her to examine the door. His face hardened when he saw the threatening words. This is getting serious, Olivia. I will have to report this and maybe request police surveillance around here. Will that help? Olivia asked, doubt clear in her voice. We will do everything we can, Ethan assured, though his voice also carried a note of uncertainty. After Ethan left, Olivia sat on the sofa, watching Scarlett and Jackson play. She felt torn between telling them the whole truth about the danger they were facing and maintaining a facade of normalcy to protect their innocence. On the rainy morning of the next day, Olivia heard a noise outside and opened the door to her house. On the ground at the entrance was a thick envelope with no address, only Olivia's name written on the front. Her heart raced as she quickly looked around before picking up the envelope and taking it inside. Again, the anonymous handwriting and the absence of a sender already suggested that the contents would be more than disturbing. Mama, did someone knock on the door? Jackson asked, watching her from the living room. No, dear, it must have been just a wrong delivery. I think Olivia lied, trying to keep her voice steady. As she headed to the kitchen to open the envelope in private, she hated lying to her son, but it was necessary to keep him safe. Inside, she found a chilling message along with several photographs of her children at school and playing outside. The message read, "We know everything about you. Stay silent, or your children will suffer." Olivia's hands trembled as she held the photos, her worst fears now confirmed. She knew that keeping quiet was no longer an option. Her family's safety was at stake. She needed to find a way to end this nightmare once and for all. Inside, she found a stack of densely filled documents and photographs. Olivia began to flip through the papers, and with each page turned, her expression grew paler. The documents detailed a corruption network, not only linked to Alexander Lopez, but intertwined with several prominent public figures in the city. There were records of payments, overpriced contracts, and communications implicating a series of illegal activities. Someone had left this to help her with the report. It's much worse than I imagined, Olivia whispered to herself, feeling the weight of the truth in her hands. Determined to understand the situation better, Olivia spent the entire morning analyzing the documents, absorbing every detail, every implication. The connections went beyond what she could have imagined, reaching the highest spheres of local power. In the afternoon, while Scarlett and Jackson played in the yard, Olivia sat in a chair, contemplating her next steps. She knew that disclosing this information could trigger even more severe consequences, but she also understood that remaining silent could perpetuate the corruption that affected so many lives. It was then that the public phone in front of her house rang, breaking the street's silence. Olivia ran to it and answered with trembling hands. Olivia Martin, a distorted voice asked from the other end of the line. Yes, it's me, she replied, caution evident in her voice. You don't know me, but I know what you received today. It is crucial that you understand the seriousness of the information I sent you. Trust no one, the voice warned, and before Olivia could ask more, the call was disconnected. Olivia stood there, the phone still in her hand, the warning echoing in her mind. She needed help, but as the anonymous voice had warned, who could she trust? Olivia felt increasingly isolated in her fight, with the true extent of the corruption now clearly in front of her, more personal and closer than she could ever have imagined. Upon returning home, the documents remained spread out in front of her, each line a web of connections and corruption that now seemed to suffocate her. "Mama, do you want to play with us?" Scarlett called from the door with her innocent voice. "Later, dear," Olivia replied, forcing a smile. She got up, locking the documents in a drawer before joining the children. As she watched Scarlett and Jackson play, the seriousness of her situation became even more palpable. Protecting those two was her priority, but to what extent could she go without compromising their safety? Olivia's internal conflict grew. She pondered whether to expose the documents to the police and risk everything, or remain safe but complicit in her silence. Each option carried its own weight, its own pain. "Mama, I'm going to Javier's house to play," Jackson shouted from the entrance, breaking Olivia's chain of thoughts. "Wait, Jackson, I'll go with," Olivia started to say, but he had already left before she could finish the sentence. Olivia's heart raced. She ran to the door, calling for him, but Jackson was already out of sight. Anxiety consumed her as she considered all the possible consequences of her decision to confront Alexander Lopez. Hours passed, and Jackson did not return. The sky was already tinged with shades of orange and purple when Olivia began searching for him, taking Scarlett with her. She asked everyone in the neighborhood if they had seen her son, however, no one knew his whereabouts. "Mama, where is Jackson?" "He will miss dinner," Scarlett asked, worry starting to form in her small eyes. Olivia tried to remain calm, but the anguish was evident in her voice. He must be around. He'll be back soon," she tried to convince herself as much as her daughter. When finally darkness set in and there was still no sign of Jackson, panic took hold of Olivia. She grabbed the public phone, her hands trembling as she dialed Ethan's number again. "Ethan, it's Olivia. My son Jackson, he's missing. He just went to a friend's house, and it's been hours," she stammered, her voice breaking with fear. "I'll send a patrol right now, Olivia. We will find him," Ethan assured firmly. Olivia hung up the phone, her heart beating erratically. The idea that Jackson's disappearance could be related to her decision to fight corruption filled her with an indescribable terror. She wondered if her pursuit of justice had gone too far, if the price to pay would be higher than she was willing to offer. The night dragged on slowly, and each minute without news of Jackson felt like an eternity to Olivia. She paced back and forth in the living room, frequently peeking out the window, hoping to see her son running back home. Scarlett, feeling the tension, played quietly in the corner, casting worried glances at her mother from time to time. Suddenly, Olivia heard the sound of a car approaching her house and went to the door immediately. She recognized Alexander Lopez's vehicle and trembled. If he had her son, Olivia would turn into a viper, ready to strike. "I won't let anyone hurt Jackson," she thought. "Where is my son?" she asked Alexander as soon as he approached close enough to hear her. Alexander smiled coldly, his eyes glinting with malice. "Your son is safe, Olivia. But he will remain that way only if you do as I say," he replied, his voice dripping with menace. "What do you want?" Olivia demanded, her voice shaking with a mix of fear and anger. "I want you to forget about the documents. Forget about going to the police. You will tell Ethan that you made a mistake, that there is no evidence of any wrongdoing," Alexander instructed, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. "And if I don't?" Olivia asked, her heart pounding in her chest. "If you don't, you'll never see your son again," Alexander said, turning away. "You have until tomorrow morning to decide. Make the right choice." As Alexander and his men drove away, Olivia stood on her porch, her mind racing. She felt trapped, her options dwindling with each passing second. She knew she couldn't trust anyone, but she also knew she couldn't give in to Alexander's demands. Returning inside, she locked the door and sat down at the kitchen table, her hands trembling. Scarlett came over and hugged her, sensing her mother's distress. "We'll get through this," Olivia whispered, more to herself than to Scarlett. She had to find a way to protect her children and expose the corruption, no matter the cost. That night, sleep eluded her. She stayed up, formulating a plan, knowing that her next steps would determine the fate of her family. She was ready to fight, but she needed to be smart. Tomorrow would be the beginning of a new battle, one that she was determined to win. "Your son, dear? You must be out of your mind," Alexander replied with a cold, sarcastic tone. "I came to propose a deal," he continued, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. If you do anything to Jackson." Olivia threatened, her voice trembling but firm, undeterred by the powerful man in front of her. "I can indeed do something to your son. That's why I need you to cooperate. I'll give you a large sum of money to ensure your silence about everything you discovered. You must hand over everything you know. That way you will never hear my name again, and your family will be safe," he said. Olivia's mind raced. She knew he was lying. She would never be safe after returning Alexander's money and reporting him. "You have until tomorrow to decide. Otherwise, you will suffer the consequences," he finished, turning his back on Olivia. His words, though calm, carried an unmistakable threat. Her heart pounded in her chest, the worry for her son growing with each passing second. Olivia would not risk Jackson's life, but she knew that making a deal with Alexander would be futile. Olivia was still anxious when she heard police sirens approaching. She ran to the door, fearing the worst. It was Ethan who got out of the police car, his serious expression bringing a mix of relief and anxiety. "We found him," Ethan said quickly as Olivia opened the door. "He's okay. He was playing in a park nearby with his friend and lost track of time." Olivia let out a relieved sigh, feeling the weight of the world lift off her shoulders for a moment. "Thank you, Ethan. Thank you for everything." She looked toward the car, where Jackson was stepping out, hesitant and visibly embarrassed. He and a friend had gone to play outside the house, and he had lost track of time, which was why Olivia had not found him when she went there. Although Olivia had feared the worst due to the threats, the situation proved to be a simple misunderstanding. Jackson was safe and had not been the target of any malicious acts involving his mother and the city's corruption. After a tight hug and many tears, Olivia prepared to thank Ethan again, but he interrupted her with a serious gesture. "We need to talk, Olivia." Inside, Olivia told Ethan about Alexander's visit and his proposal. The policeman was not convinced. "You and I both know that making a deal with Alexander guarantees nothing in the long run. It's just a purchase of silence, not safety," Ethan replied. Olivia pondered deeply, every part of her being struggling with the moral dilemma before her. "I can't accept, not after everything I've seen and know. It would be the same as being an accomplice, but I fear for my children's lives," Ethan nodded, respecting her decision. "I expected you to say that. I'll keep an eye on Jackson and Scarlett. I'll let all the officers know to keep them safe." After Ethan left, Olivia felt a strange peace mixed with fear. She was grateful that Jackson was safe and, at the same time, afraid something might happen. She prepared the children for bed, trying to act as if everything was normal. Feeling suffocated by worry, Olivia went to the front of the house to get fresh air. However, her sense of dread increased when she saw the front door ajar. She remembered locking it when she went to the bedroom. On the worn table on her porch was an envelope with several photographs of her and her children, with a message scribbled in red, "Think carefully about your choices." Trembling, Olivia gathered the photographs, realizing that her decision to fight had only intensified the dangerous game she was involved in. She now knew that every step forward would be even more dangerous, but backing down was not an option. The challenge was just beginning. The next day, 24 hours after Alexander's threat, near the time limit he had set, the situation worsened. Olivia received a call on the public phone from Ethan's police partner. The urgency in his voice was unmistakable. "Olivia, I need you to come to the hospital now." What happened? Olivia's voice trembled, fearing the answer. Ethan was found in the park this morning, severely injured. He is in critical condition, intubated. He couldn't speak, but he asked me to tell you something immediately, Marco said, his voice carrying a weight that made Olivia's heart sink. Olivia's mind swirled with fear and dread. She hurried to the hospital, her thoughts racing with possibilities and fears. When she arrived, Marco met her at the entrance, his face grave. Before he lost consciousness, Ethan managed to whisper one thing: trust no one. Except Olivia, Marco relayed the message with a heavy heart. He wanted to ensure you understood the gravity of the situation and the danger you're in. Standing in the hospital hallway, Olivia felt the world closing in around her. Her eyes filled with tears as she struggled to process the implications of Ethan's message. He had risked everything to protect her and her children, and now his life hung in the balance. I don't know what to do, Olivia admitted, her voice breaking. Marco placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We will protect you and your family, Olivia, but you need to stay vigilant and be careful. We'll figure this out together. As Olivia left the hospital, a new determination settled in her heart. She would fight for justice, not just for herself, but for Ethan and everyone else affected by the corruption. The road ahead was fraught with danger, but Olivia was ready to face it head-on. She returned home, her resolve steeled by the events of the day. Back at the house, she carefully reviewed the documents once more, committing every detail to memory. She knew that the information she held was powerful, and it was time to use it to bring down those responsible. Olivia called Ethan's partner, Marco, and together they devised a plan to expose the corruption without endangering her children. Olivia spent the following days gathering more evidence and building a case that would be impossible to ignore. She worked tirelessly, fueled by the desire to protect her family and honor Ethan's sacrifice. The night before they planned to go public with the information, Olivia gathered Scarlett and Jackson close. No matter what happens, I love you both so much, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. The next morning, Olivia and Marco met with trusted officials and presented their findings. The evidence was irrefutable, and the wheels of justice began to turn. Alexander Lopez and his network of corruption were exposed, leading to multiple arrests and a sweeping investigation. Throughout the process, Olivia remained vigilant, always aware of the potential dangers. But with Marco and the police's protection, she felt a newfound sense of hope. The fight was far from over, but Olivia knew she had taken a crucial step towards a safer future for her children. As the dust settled, Olivia looked out at the horizon, the weight of the past few weeks lifting slightly from her shoulders. She had faced unimaginable threats and emerged stronger, determined to create a better life for Scarlett and Jackson. And though the road ahead would still have its challenges, Olivia knew she was no longer alone in her fight for justice. Without losing a second, Olivia arranged for someone to watch the children and ran to the hospital. The white and sterile corridor of the hospital seemed to stretch infinitely as she made her way to the ICU where Ethan was admitted. Entering the room, Olivia was confronted with the sight of Ethan, motionless in the hospital bed, surrounded by tubes and machines beeping intermittently. Tears flooded her eyes as she saw her friend and ally in that state. Marco, Ethan's police partner, placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. He was attacked from behind with no chance to defend himself. It seems they knew exactly when he would be alone, Marco explained, the barely contained anger in his voice. Olivia felt a mix of pain and rage. Why would they do this to him, she asked, though deep down she knew the answer. They want to intimidate you, Olivia. They want you to stop, Marco said directly, his gaze fixed on hers. The reality of those words hit Olivia like a blow. The attack on Ethan was not just a message for him, but a clear warning to her. As she sat beside Ethan's bed, holding his cold hand, Olivia pondered what to do. With every moment spent beside her injured friend, she felt her determination harden. They want me to stop and drop the report, she murmured to herself, but I can't. Not now. Returning home that night, Olivia felt the weight of her decision. She knew that continuing to fight could bring even more severe consequences, but the alternative, silence, now seemed impossible. As she opened the door to her house, a sense of desolation washed over her. It was clear that her fight had cost her a lot, and the price could continue to rise. "My God, please protect me. I just wanted to return the money and do the right thing," she prayed, scared. Olivia had barely closed the door behind her when she noticed something strange. An envelope carelessly tossed on the doormat. Her name was scribbled on it in grotesque letters. Trembling, Olivia picked up the envelope and tore it open with hesitant hands. Inside, she found a single sheet of paper with a message written in bold letters: "This is your last warning." Olivia held the paper with trembling hands, the reality of her situation more palpable than ever. With each decision, each step she took, the shadow of danger lengthened, touching everything and everyone she loved. The weeks following the last warning were marked by a palpable tension that seemed to envelop Olivia's house like a thick fog. Every day she reinforced the security of her home, adding more wood to block the door and installing new barricades on the windows. Life inside their home became a series of carefully orchestrated routines to ensure everyone's safety. One cloudy afternoon, while Olivia was organizing the documents she had received, an unexpected call broke the apprehensive monotony. It was Marco, Ethan's partner, with news that made her heart stop for a moment. "Olivia, you won't believe it. Ethan woke up and he's talking. He wants to testify, to tell everything he knows about Alexander Lopez's connections to corruption in the city. You need to testify too." Olivia felt a mix of relief and fear. "I'm glad Ethan is better, Marco, but is it safe after everything that's happened?" "We're taking all precautions. Ethan is under police protection, and we're planning the hearing so that everything is kept secret until the last possible moment," Marco explained, his voice carrying a firm determination. The idea of testifying filled Olivia with dread, but she knew it was a necessary step toward justice. She couldn't let fear paralyze her, especially now that Ethan was willing to stand by her side. "All right, Marco, I'll do it. I'll testify." Olivia agreed, her voice resolute despite the anxiety churning inside her. As the day of the hearing approached, Olivia focused on preparing her testimony. She spent hours reviewing the documents, ensuring every detail was clear in her mind. She knew that her words could make a significant impact, and she wanted to be ready for whatever came next. On the morning of the hearing, Olivia felt a wave of nerves, but also a sense of purpose. She dressed carefully, wanting to present herself with as much confidence as she could muster. Marco arrived to escort her, providing a reassuring presence as they made their way to the courthouse. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Police officers were stationed at every entrance, their eyes scanning for any potential threats. Olivia's heart raced as she took her place next to Ethan, who was sitting in a wheelchair, his face pale but determined. As the proceedings began, Olivia spoke clearly and calmly, recounting the corruption and threats she had uncovered. She felt the weight of the room's attention on her, but she didn't waver. Ethan's testimony followed, corroborating her account and adding further damning details about Alexander Lopez's operations. The judge listened intently, his expression serious. By the end of the hearing, it was clear that the evidence presented was overwhelming. Arrest warrants were issued for Lopez and several of his associates, marking a significant victory in the fight against corruption. Despite the triumph in the courtroom, Olivia knew the battle was far from over. The risk to her and her family remained high, but she was no longer alone. With the support of the police and the community, she felt a renewed sense of hope. As she left the courthouse, Olivia looked up at the sky, feeling the weight of the past few months lift slightly. She had faced unimaginable threats and emerged stronger, more determined than ever to protect her children and fight for justice. The road ahead would still be fraught with challenges, but Olivia knew she had taken a crucial step towards a safer future for Scarlett and Jackson. And though the shadows of danger still loomed, she felt a glimmer of light breaking through, guiding her forward. In the days leading up to the testimony, Olivia felt torn between the hope that they could finally expose the truth and the persistent fear of more reprisals. She visited Ethan in the safe location where he was being kept, finding him remarkably recovered, but still marked by the events that had almost cost him his life. "Olivia, we can't let him get away with this. He had me attacked, and he's threatening you. I'm sure he does this to others too." "This is bigger than me, bigger than us," Ethan said with a conviction that strengthened Olivia's resolve. Returning home on the eve of the day scheduled for the testimony, Olivia prepared a meal for her children with the little she had in the cupboards, trying to seal the anxiety that pulsed beneath her calm exterior. After putting Scarlett and Jackson to bed, she allowed herself a few moments of quiet, looking up at the starry sky, seeking some peace before the storm she knew was approaching. It was almost midnight when the phone rang, tearing through the night's silence with its urgent tone. Olivia answered, her heart pounding. "Olivia, it's me, Ethan. Someone is trying to break in where I'm hiding. I can hear noises outside. It seems they know where I am. Try to stay in a safe place. They might come to you too." Olivia's blood ran cold. "I'll call Marco right now, and they'll send reinforcements to us." "Hold on, Ethan." Hanging up the phone, Olivia felt each heartbeat like a hammer in her consciousness. She knew the next few hours would be crucial. As she called Marco to inform him of the situation, a sense of despair took hold of her, mixed with a fierce determination. She wouldn't let fear define the end of this fight. Ethan had decided to face danger to tell the truth, and she would stand by him no matter what. The hours that followed Ethan's call were unbearably tense. Olivia could barely stay still, pacing the house while waiting for news. Finally, the sun began to brighten the sky, bringing with it the day of the trial that could change everything. Upon arriving at the courthouse, Olivia felt everyone's eyes on her. Some looks were sympathetic, others disdainful, and some carried a malicious gleam. Marco informed her that Ethan was safe, that the police had responded in time to prevent the worst. With that small relief, Olivia prepared to enter the courtroom, knowing that now everything was crucial. Ethan was already in the courtroom, looking pale and somewhat fragile, but his determination was palpable. They exchanged a look of complicity and strength before taking their places. The trial began with the prosecutor outlining the web of corruption, citing evidence and calling witnesses who bravely detailed how Alexander Lopez and his accomplices manipulated contracts and bribed officials. Ethan was one of the key witnesses, and his testimony was both a recounting of the corruption and an act of defiance. Olivia observed every face in the courtroom, trying to read their reactions. Alexander Lopez was present, impeccably dressed, his posture calm but his eyes hard and cold. Beside him, his lawyers whispered fervently, taking notes on Ethan's every word. When it was Olivia's turn to testify, she walked to the front with firm steps despite the fear she felt. With each word she spoke, she exposed not only Alexander's crimes, but also her own vulnerability. During a recess, as Olivia returned to her seat, a man she recognized as one of Alexander's closest associates approached her discreetly. He passed her a note. Olivia took it with trembling hands and unfolded it under the table, reading the hastily written words, "This won't end here. Be careful." Olivia's blood ran cold. She looked around to see if anyone else had noticed the exchange, but everyone was busy with their own conversations and preparations for the next session. Feeling a mix of dread and determination, Olivia knew she couldn't back down now. The truth was too important, and too many lives were at stake. She discreetly showed the note to Marco, who nodded and took it as evidence, his face set in a grim expression. As the trial resumed, Olivia's testimony continued to lay bare the corruption that had infiltrated their city. She described in detail the threats, the bribes, and the intricate network of deceit that Alexander had woven. The courtroom was silent, each word she spoke echoing with the weight of truth and the promise of justice. When the day finally ended, Olivia felt a profound exhaustion settle over her. She returned home with Marco's assurance that extra security measures were in place to protect her and her children. Despite the looming threats, there was a glimmer of hope that justice might prevail. In the following days, the trial continued with more witnesses coming forward. Emboldened by Ethan and Olivia's courage, the media picked up the story, and public opinion began to sway against Alexander Lopez and his corrupt empire. Pressure mounted, and it became increasingly clear that the walls were closing in on him. On the final day of the trial, the courtroom was packed. Olivia and Ethan sat together, a united front against the corruption that had sought to destroy them. The judge delivered the verdict, finding Alexander Lopez guilty on multiple counts of corruption, bribery, and intimidation. The sentence was severe, ensuring he would be behind bars for a long time. As the gavel struck, signaling the end of the trial, a wave of relief and triumph washed over Olivia. She had faced her fears, protected her children, and stood up for what was right. The journey had been harrowing, but she had emerged stronger, with a renewed sense of purpose and hope for the future. Walking out of the courthouse, Olivia looked up at the sky, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of peace. With Ethan by her side and her children safe, she was ready to rebuild their lives, free from the shadows of corruption and fear. When the trial resumed, Olivia felt each word of the threat burning in her mind. She tried to focus on the proceedings, on the lawyer's questions, on the witnesses' answers, but part of her was always alert, always waiting for the next blow. The courtroom was heavy with tension. People murmured, the air thick with anticipation. This isn't just a case of corruption. It's a matter of justice and humanity, Olivia declared, her voice echoing through the attentive silence of the courtroom. I chose not to remain silent because silence makes us complicit. I chose to fight not for myself, but for all those who have no voice against this mafia. At the end of her testimony, a respectful silence hung in the air, broken only by the judge calling the next witness. Olivia returned to her seat, feeling the weight of her words settle on everyone's shoulders. When the court finally adjourned for the day, Olivia stood, exhausted but resilient. A crowd gathered outside the courthouse. At the front were supporters of Alexander Lopez, their faces contorted with anger and disdain. They must have been threatened to be there, holding signs, shouting threatening words, and blocking Olivia's exit. The hatred in their eyes was evident and frightening. Olivia paused, her heart pounding erratically. Marco placed a hand on her shoulder, whispering, "We're not alone in this." Looking around, she saw that some in the courtroom, touched by her testimony, began to join her, forming a human shield. Together they walked towards the exit, facing the shouts and hostile looks. Back at the refuge of her home, after the confrontation at the courthouse, Olivia was relieved to see Scarlett and Jackson playing quietly on the living room floor. Their innocent laughter a sharp contrast to the gravity Olivia felt after the testimony. She joined them on the floor, trying to find comfort in the normalcy of being a mother, but her mind was restless. What if I've gone too far, she wondered, looking at her children. What if my fight for justice only puts them in greater danger? Later, as she put them to bed, Olivia kissed their foreheads, trying to convey a calm she didn't feel. "Good night, my loves. Everything will be okay," she murmured, more as a promise to herself than as a guarantee to them. After ensuring they were asleep, Olivia sat at the table under the dim light, allowing herself a moment of despair. The fight seemed endless, and for a moment, she pondered the possibility of giving up. Then the public phone rang on the street, cutting through the night silence like an alarm signal. Hesitant, Olivia ran to it and answered, fearing it might be someone sent by Alexander. Olivia Martin, the voice on the other end, was distorted, almost unrecognizable due to a voice modulator. "Yes, who's speaking?" Olivia replied, her voice trembling. "I can't tell you who I am, but I know what you need. I have in my possession one last piece of evidence that could turn the tide in your favor, one that can ensure Alexander Lopez and his accomplices don't escape this time." Olivia felt her heart race. "How can I believe you? How do I know this isn't a trap?" "You have no way of knowing," the voice admitted, "but I was the one who gave you the previous documents that proved some things about Alexander, so you know you're safe with me. I'll be at the city park at dawn, alone. If you want the truth, come and find it." The call ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving Olivia with the receiver still in her hand and a whirlwind of thoughts running through her mind. It was a chance, perhaps the last, to get what she needed to ensure justice, but it could also be a fatal risk. Olivia spent the night wide awake, pondering her decision. At the first light of dawn, she made her choice, strengthened by the thought that each step she took was for a cause greater than her own safety. With renewed determination, she prepared for the meeting, knowing that this could be the decisive turning point in her relentless fight for justice. At dawn, Olivia walked towards the city park, where the decisive meeting was set. The morning mist still covered the park, turning each bench and tree into a scene of mystery and tension. She remained alert, attentive to any suspicious movement. Finally, she spotted a solitary figure near the lake, wrapped in a large coat. Cautiously, Olivia approached, feeling that this moment could be both a trap and the key to her fight. The figure lowered the hood, revealing a woman with eyes marked by a somber resolution. "You came," the woman said, her voice softer now but still carrying the weight of urgency. "I'm the one who sent you the documents. I used to work for Lopez, but I couldn't live with the guilt anymore. What he does, it destroys lives." "Why are you helping me?" Olivia asked, her voice a mixture of suspicion and hope. "Because I know what it's like to live in fear. I know what it's like to be silenced. I can't undo the past, but I can help ensure he faces justice." "Here," she said, handing Olivia a small flash drive. "This contains records of his most incriminating activities. Bank transfers, illegal deals, everything. It's enough to bring him down." Olivia took the flash drive, feeling the weight of it as if it were a lifeline. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude and determination. "This means everything." The woman nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Be careful, Olivia. He's desperate now. He won't stop until he's silenced everyone who stands against him." As the woman walked away, disappearing into the mist, Olivia felt a renewed sense of purpose. She hurried back home, knowing that she needed to get this information to Marco and the authorities immediately. Back at home, Olivia locked the door and quickly called Marco, explaining everything that had transpired. "This could be the break we need," Marco said, his voice filled with cautious optimism. "I'll arrange for you to come to the station. We need to analyze this and prepare for the final blow." The hours that followed were a blur of activity. Olivia and Marco worked tirelessly, ensuring the evidence was secure and ready for presentation. The gravity of the situation hung over them, but so did the hope that justice was finally within reach. The next day in the courtroom, Olivia and Ethan stood together as the prosecution presented the new evidence. The flash drive's contents were damning, painting a clear picture of Lopez's extensive criminal network. As each piece of evidence was unveiled, the tension in the room grew palpable. Alexander Lopez, once so confident and untouchable, now looked visibly shaken. His lawyers scrambled, but the overwhelming weight of the evidence left little room for doubt. When the judge finally delivered the verdict, finding Lopez guilty on all charges, a wave of relief and triumph washed over Olivia. The courtroom erupted in applause, but Olivia's thoughts were with Ethan, Marco, and the mysterious woman who had risked everything to help her. As she left the courthouse, the sun breaking through the clouds, Olivia felt a profound sense of peace. She had faced her fears, protected her children, and stood up for what was right. The journey had been harrowing, but she had emerged stronger, with a renewed sense of purpose and hope for the future. Walking home, she knew there would still be challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of peace. With Ethan by her side and her children safe, she was ready to rebuild their lives, free from the shadows of corruption and fear. Olivia Martin, the woman, asked in a low voice, "Yes, that's me." "You said you had something for me," Olivia replied, trying to maintain composure. The woman handed Olivia a thick envelope. "I'm a former assistant of Alexander Lopez. Here are recordings of Alexander admitting everything from bribes to manipulations. I can't live with this anymore. I hope it helps." Olivia held the envelope, her hands trembling. "Why now?" "I saw what he did to people, to you, and I don't want to be part of it anymore. I thought being on his side would bring me safety. But it only brought guilt," the woman explained before quickly walking away, leaving Olivia with the recordings in her hands. Returning to the courthouse the next day, the recordings were played before the judge and jury. Alexander tried to defend himself, but the evidence was irrefutable. During the trial, Alexander was forced to admit his motivations in a shocking statement. "I thought I could control everything and everyone. Power blinded me to justice and morality. I was wrong," Alexander confessed, his posture finally broken. At the end of the trial, the judge addressed Olivia directly before pronouncing the sentence. "Mrs. Martin, your courage and determination not only exposed a deep network of corruption but also saved this community from future harm. It is only fair that you are compensated for your heroism and for all the hardships you faced." Thus, the judge ordered that a significant portion of the assets confiscated from Alexander Lopez be awarded to Olivia as a form of reparation and recognition for her crucial role in the case. With this financial reward, Olivia not only secured a bright educational future for Scarlett and Jackson, but also acquired a new house, symbolizing a new beginning for the family. Weeks later, Olivia's story was frequently told as an example of courage and integrity. She had become an inspiring figure in her community, encouraging others to speak out against injustice and threats. "You changed our city," Mama Jackson said as they gazed at the starry sky from the yard of their new house. Olivia smiled, stroking her son's hair. "We changed it, my love. All of us who chose to speak out, and we will continue to change it. Always for the better." It was the peace of knowing the fight had been worth it, and that peace was the greatest reward of all. 5 years after the trial that shook the foundations of her city, Olivia watched her children in the yard of their new house, a spacious and sunlit home that symbolized the new life they had built. Scarlett, now a brilliant teenager, studied under the shade of a lush tree, while Jackson, older and almost a young man, helped with the garden plants. The education Olivia had secured with the financial reward transformed their lives. Scarlett showed a remarkable talent for sciences, dreaming of becoming an engineer, while Jackson developed a passion for literature, often found with a book in hand, lost in worlds created by words. Finally, Olivia had found a job, and the children no longer faced any hardship, living happily alongside their mother. The community around them had also changed. Where fear and corruption once reigned, a spirit of cooperation and justice now flourished. Olivia had played a crucial role in this transformation, not just as the woman who challenged Alexander Lopez, but as an inspiring figure who continued to work with the community to ensure the shadows of the past did not return. Alexander Lopez and his accomplices, after being sentenced, spent their days in prison. The recordings brought by his former assistant had been the final blow to his web of corruption, dismantling not only his illicit operations, but also serving as a warning to others who ventured down similar paths. Ethan, recovered from his injuries, had become the local police chief, leading an era of reforms and transparency within the force. He and Olivia maintained a strong friendship, united by a shared history of struggle and overcoming. Ethan frequently visited Olivia's house, each visit a reminder of their shared journey and the bonds they formed. One peaceful afternoon, during one of Ethan's visits, Olivia prepared tea while reflecting on the impact of her story. Her fight had been turned into a local documentary, used in schools as a lesson on the importance of integrity and courage. It's strange to think that our story is studied. I just returned the money and reported what I discovered. Just did my part, commented Olivia. But it's important, Ethan replied. It's a reminder that no matter how difficult the battle, it's worth fighting for what's right. No matter the difficulty, it's essential to stay honest, he continued. Olivia nodded, a smile playing on her lips. We all did our part. And now our children can grow up in a better place because of it. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over their peaceful neighborhood, Olivia felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey had been long and fraught with danger, but the future was now bright. She had not only secured a safe and happy life for her children, but had also inspired a community to stand up against corruption and injustice. And that, she knew, was a legacy worth fighting for. Ethan's presence always brought a sense of joy and vitality that Olivia cherished. They sat in the garden, watching as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow over the landscape. The conversation flowed effortlessly, weaving through memories of the past and hopes for the future. They reminisced about the dark times they had endured and spoke with optimism about the brighter days ahead. You changed our city, Olivia. You changed our lives, Ethan said, raising his glass in a heartfelt toast. His eyes shone with admiration and gratitude. Olivia smiled warmly, glancing over at her children who had joined them in the garden. Scarlett and Jackson, now growing into remarkable young individuals, played nearby, their laughter a testament to the peace and happiness that now surrounded them. We changed it. All of us, she replied, her voice filled with emotion. And we will continue to change it, always for the better. As night fell, a serene stillness settled over the city. This city, once plagued by corruption and fear, was now a beacon of hope and justice. The streetlights flickered on, illuminating the neighborhoods that had been transformed by their relentless fight for truth. Olivia felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over her. The battle had been grueling, but the victory was sweet, not just because justice had prevailed, but because of the profound impact it had on the community. The shadows of the past seemed to recede as Olivia reflected on their journey. She thought of all the people who had stood by her, from Ethan, whose unwavering support had been a cornerstone of her strength, to the anonymous whistleblowers who had risked everything to provide crucial evidence. Each one of them had played a part in dismantling the web of corruption that had ensnared their city. Remember the night we found those documents, Ethan said, breaking the comfortable silence. That was the turning point. I don't think I ever told you, but I was terrified. I knew what we were up against, and yet there was something about your determination that kept me going. Olivia nodded, recalling the fear that had gripped her heart that night. I was scared too, she admitted, but I knew we couldn't stop. Too many people were counting on us, and look at what we've accomplished. The evening air grew cooler, and Olivia pulled a shawl around her shoulders. The twinkling stars above seemed to mirror the light of hope that had been ignited in their city. As they sat together, the conversation shifted to the future. They talked about the ongoing projects aimed at maintaining transparency in the local government, the community programs designed to help those in need, and the educational initiatives that would ensure the next generation was equipped to continue their work. Scarlett and Jackson joined them, and the family and friends sat together, sharing stories and dreams under the starry sky. Jackson, his eyes wide with excitement, spoke about his latest literary discovery, while Scarlett detailed her latest science project, both kids embodying the promise of a brighter future. You know, Ethan said, looking at the children, they're the real reason we did all this, so they can grow up in a world where integrity and justice prevail. Olivia's heart swelled with pride as she listened to her children's animated conversations. Yes, and we will continue to protect that world for them. The sense of accomplishment was palpable, but Olivia knew their work was far from over. She felt a deep sense of duty to ensure the city remained a place of justice and integrity. Her fight had lit a spark in the community, one that she hoped would continue to burn brightly for generations to come. As the night deepened, the peacefulness of their home contrasted sharply with the turmoil they had once faced. Olivia looked around at her family and friends, feeling an immense gratitude for the journey they had shared. They had faced darkness and emerged into the light, stronger and more united than ever. Ethan raised his glass once more, this time with a broader smile. To courage, to justice, and to the future. Everyone joined in the toast, their glasses clinking together in a harmonious chorus. Olivia took a deep breath, savoring the moment. She knew that while they had won a significant battle, the fight for justice was ongoing. But for now, in the warmth of her home, surrounded by those she loved, she allowed herself to relish the peace they had fought so hard to achieve. Looking out at the city that had been transformed by their efforts, Olivia felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had not only won a battle against corruption, but had also inspired a community to stand up for what was right. The journey had been arduous, but it had been worth every struggle, every sleepless night, and every moment of doubt. As we conclude this incredible journey, let's take a moment to reflect on where it all began. A widow with 2 children saw that a wealthy man had thrown a luxury carpet into the dump. From that humble beginning, Olivia Martin embarked on a path that would change her life and the lives of those around her forever. Her courage, determination, and unyielding sense of justice transformed a city plagued by corruption into a beacon of hope and integrity. Now, we want to hear from you. What have you learned from Olivia's story? Please comment below on one thing you have learned and will bring into practice in your own life. Whether it's standing up against injustice, supporting your community, or simply staying true to your principles, we are eager to hear your thoughts. If you like this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support motivates us to continue bringing exciting and inspiring stories almost every day. Thank you for being part of this journey with us. See you in the next video.